It's time for us to talk about our first UFC title fight of 2022, and we're going to the smallest weight class in the men's division of the UFC, and it's a fight that we've seen 2 times already. Brandon Moreno, the new UFC Flyweight title champion, I should say, he is taking on the guy who he beat to win that belt back in June, Deivison Figueiredo. So, first time in UFC Flyweight history, we are getting ourselves a trilogy fight. At the moment, the betting odds have Brandon Moreno as a minus 170 favourite. Figueiredo comes in at plus 140. The INC poll, which we posted earlier today, however, they're much more one-sided. Brandon Moreno, 79% to win this one.
Was Demetrius Johnson Benavidez a trilogy? But I don't think all 3 happened in the UFC, but wasn't that a trilogy as well?
I think they only had the 2 fights because it was the first one to crown the inaugural champion. I think that was UFC 152.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had the rematch on the UFC Fox card, and Mighty Mouse won that first round.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe I'm wrong about that. Yeah. But I kind of alluded to this in the beginning. It is a bit hard to get, super amped about this fight because this is the third time in 13 months that it's happened. Each guy has a win. Obviously it was officially a draw the first time, but let's be real. Deivison Figueiredo won that fight. Not really sure what the judges were watching. I think that Figueiredo won 4 rounds, 1, 2, 4, and 5. Even with the point deduction, he should have won 48-46. But the judges boofed that one badly. And then in the last fight, obviously Moreno looked spectacular, getting the 3rd round sub. But I think Figueiredo looked, pretty compromised from the jump. Just did not look like his typical self. Obviously, some of that credit goes to Moreno for shutting him down. But just physically, Figueiredo was not there. This is a guy who was, nearly impossible to submit by Jussier Formiga. Formiga had him in all types of bad positions on the mat, and Fig still was able to stay, defensively sound, not get submitted. And then Moreno was able to, backtake him and submit him quite easily in that fight. I just think that Figueiredo wasn't really there for that fight. It wasn't motivated. And, now switching up his camp, training at Fight Ready, training with Cejudo. I think we'll see some good improvements. I remember, you asked me what improvements we would see from Weili Zhang for training with Cejudo. And I didn't think much because, the Cejudo and Zhang's fighting styles just don't really align too much. Obviously, there's the language barrier, there's the gender barrier. But when you're talking about Cejudo, who is, a very similar sized fighter to Figueiredo, I think that they can really benefit from training with one another. So I think we're going to see a Figueiredo in a lot better shape, a lot more motivated for this one. I've seen a picture of him in camp, and he looks absolutely shredded. So I think we're going to see a lot more game Figueiredo this time around.
I think it's quite concerning that I saw the same picture as you, and I agree. He looked in absolutely amazing shape. But that kind of shape, that shredded, and you still got to cut another 9 pounds. I personally think that the weight cut, you've got to bear in mind as well, Figueiredo's 33, 34 years old? So he's getting on in age when it comes to the flyweight division. And I wonder, is that weight cut becoming too much for him? Because I did believe that the original plan was for him to go up to 135. And then Pantoja ended up getting injured, couldn't take his place in the title fight. And they convinced Figueiredo, hey, we'll give you a title shot, trilogy fight, if you stay back down. Win or lose, I don't see Deivison Figueiredo staying at 125 for much longer.
Yeah, that's probably right. He beat Perez, he beat Pantoja, Moreno. That trilogy settled. He's not going to be like, oh, I'm motivated to fight Askarov. Let me cut that weight and make it back down to 125. I don't think he's going to want any part of that Askarov matchup. So I agree. This is probably the last time we see Figueiredo at 125. Did that caption on the picture say that he weighed like 134? Where'd you get that 9 pound number from?
I believe his manager said he's got another 9 pounds to cut.
Okay. Well, I think I don't think that'll be too bad. I mean, I think this guy was making pretty huge weight cuts in the past, and we know that muscle holds more water than fat does. So I think it'll be not too difficult for him to cut that because the guy looks like he has like not an ounce of fat on his body. So I think we're gonna see a bit better weight cut, and bit better energy management. That definitely could have played a factor into the how badly Figueiredo looked last fight. A bad weight cut. But what you said is true. Figueredo is getting up there in age. He's, very experienced. Um, hasn't taken a whole lot of damage over his career, but I think the weight cut has just depleted that gas tank and that physicality of him a lot. While Moreno is still, improving. So basically, what I'm saying is, I think Figueiredo might have already hit his ceiling, while Moreno is still on the upward trajectory. He is still clearly getting better fight to fight. His athleticism has not begun to dwindle at all. So I mean, I think you gotta give the advantage to Brandon Moreno in this one. He's got the momentum. He's got, I think, the more consistent athleticism. Like, there's a very very small chance that Moreno's athleticism is gonna fall off, right? But meanwhile, there is a very real chance that Figueiredo is just kind of permanently damaged. Maybe he'll never go back to that perfect form, that best form of his, which is probably going to be in the first Moreno fight, or maybe the Benavidez fights, or the Pantoja fight he looked incredible in. But there's a real concern about which version of these guys is going to show up, and with Moreno, you have a lot less to be concerned about on the Figueiredo side.
And the other thing as well he has going for him though is confidence as well. Like the one that always sticks in my mind when I talk about sort of like Brandon Moreno in the first fight and the second fight, it sort of reminds me of Frankie Edgar when he fought BJ Penn. Like BJ Penn was this legendary figure, unstoppable, the pound for pound best fighter in the world. The first fight, Frankie had the attitude of, I think I can win. The second time around, which was a much more one-sided fight, I know I can win. And I think that's what we're going to see from Brandon Moreno. And we saw that in the first fight as well. He maybe was a little bit nervous of Figueiredo's power. But I think once he started to settle into that fight, he ended up coming back into it, and we had that fight of the year candidate between the two. Second time around, he had the confidence. Yes, Figueiredo had a lot of issues with the weight cut, and I do think that Figueiredo was depleted, and I think that played a big factor in his performance. But you can't take anything away from Brandon Moreno. He looked a step above what we saw at 256. Whether or not he's going to make another big jump in improvement, I'm not 100% sure. Look, my money would go towards Brandon Moreno if I was pressed. But we have seen if Deivison Figueiredo can get the weight cut right, like he did against Joe Benavidez, like he did against Alex Perez, he is more than capable of finishing this fight. I would argue a 100% Figueiredo is a much more dangerous finisher than what Brandon Moreno is.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Figueiredo wasn't able to finish the first fight, even though he was beating Moreno up for the stretches of that fight. But Moreno is just inhumanely tough. So I
Yes.
feel like he's not going to get a finish here. He's going to really need to be patient to win the rounds here, to win 3 out of 5 rounds, to win this decision, because I just think it might be damn near impossible to finish Moreno at this point. The guy is so durable, but Figueroa digs to the body really well. He has great attritional tools like that. I think the leg kick for both guys is going to be a big factor here. Who can get that leg kick going and limit the mobility of one another, and shutting down the grappling. Figueiredo previously had really solid takedown defense. He was hard to hold down, but Moreno was able to get him down in that last fight, and hopefully maybe training with Cejudo has got that takedown defense a bit better on point for Figueiredo this time around. And I'll definitely be picking Moreno, as a straight up pick. I think he's just the easier pick to make here, with the momentum being on his side, with him winning the last fight. But I'll definitely be cheering for Figueiredo. I do like Figueiredo more out of the two, although I have very high opinions of Moreno. But I would like to see Figueiredo get that win back. a part of me feels like a little annoyed that we're having to see this fight for a third time. Like I said, I did score the first fight for Figueiredo 4 rounds to 1, and now because of judging, because the judges, don't know how to watch fights, we're now having to see this fight for a third time in 13 months, and it's kind of a waste of both guys' time. I think that we could have moved on to more interesting original matchups, but we're having to see this fight over and over again. So. The odds have, Moreno at around 63% for this one. And it's crazy to see the odds shift around here. I mean, the first fight, Figueredo was like a 75% favorite, maybe even higher than 75%. Second time, he was only the same odds as Moreno this time. He was only like maybe 63, 65%, and now he's going to the underdog at 40%. So the odds are going all over the place. Last December, he was 75%. This January, he's down to 40%. So the odds just had a massive shift in this fight. So I think if you're betting this one, I think Figueredo as the underdog is probably the bet to make. Um, and I'm still looking forward to the fight. I'm still interested to see how it plays out. But I'm definitely not, you know, vividly or over the top excited for this one. I don't think you really can be. I mean, we've seen it 2 times already.